Welcome. I am delighted to be here. I've been a big fan of the Dirty Salad Club now for quite some time and attended a good few of the meetings. So really delighted when Julie asked me to present this morning. So I think it was one famous psychologist, I think it was Fritz Perls, who said, fear is just excitement without the breath. So I just have to remind myself to breathe. So I hope you're all breathing this morning. So before we get started this morning, what I would like to do is just to ask you to consider a couple of things. So have you been feeling a bit more distracted than usual lately? Have you found that when you are going to sit down to do your work, that maybe instead of focusing solely on one thing, that you're distracted by lots of different things going on, and you've lots of different screens going on, and you get to the end of the day and you think, what on earth was that about? What did I accomplish today? So anybody find that they're a little bit more distracted than usual? So show of hands. Anybody? Yeah, good few. Okay, so basically this is something that we're going to be looking at today, and I want you to bear that in mind as we go through today. And the second thing I'd like you to think about today is if you had some strategies that could help you to focus, if you had some strategies that enabled you to be here in the now and to just focus on what you were doing without all the distractions, would that be helpful both for yourself or for your clients? Okay, so I know personally for me, getting focused and losing the distractions is something that has been hugely important for me, particularly obviously since March. That's the first thing I'd like you to consider. The second thing I'd like you to consider is, have you ever thought about the concept of your future self when you think about your future vision? Okay, so this is something that is quite new to a lot of people, and certainly when I work with clients and I talk about the future, this is something that they find quite difficult to get their heads around, okay, quite difficult to focus on. So I watched a TED talk by a psychologist from UCLA, a psychologist and a professor called Hal Hershfield, and he has a TED talk called How Can We Help Our Future Selves? And they discovered that when they did MRI scans of people's brains, that they could see their future self as another person, but it was better for them if they didn't see it as somebody who was like a remote stranger. So if it was somebody that they felt closer to. He also discovered that those people who were able to visualize their future selves as somebody quite close to them, with whom they could identify, they were more motivated about their future, and they enjoyed it much more, and they were much more engaged and motivated. So before we start into today's topic, I want to ask you to keep this idea in mind of the future self, because we're more going to be focusing on your vision today and looking at your self-awareness and how you can get yourself into the best state to look at your future self. But I want you to keep in mind just the idea of yourself in relation to your future vision, the compelling vision that you are going to create for yourself. So before we get into the nitty-gritty of today's talk, I want to do one more thing. I'm going to give you a case study that I want you to bear in mind, which we're going to come back to at the end. And I want to talk about Rachel. Okay, so Rachel is a client and she's having 3 issues, 2 of which I've already touched upon. Rachel is finding that she's completely distracted. Okay, her social media is just constantly, her phone's constantly pinging at her. She's constantly scrolling through her phone. She can't seem to focus at all. Rachel's in her early 30s. She works in an office. She's a graphic designer, but she's not really got the experience, and she's struggling to move forward in her career. Okay, and she's finding that during her day, she's very distracted, and particularly obviously since lockdown, things have gone from bad to worse. But she's never considered her future. Okay, she's not a planner. She doesn't set goals, and she doesn't measure goals, and she doesn't, when you talk to her about the sense of her future self, she just has no concept of what that is. So Rachel lives on her own. She does have a boyfriend, but she's not married, and she's got quite a good group of friends, but she's finding herself increasingly isolated, distracted, not able to focus. So what I'd like you to do is just keep Rachel in mind for me and think of a number between 1 and 10 of her general life satisfaction. So if you were doing, say, the Wheel of Life with her, you know, in general, a number between 1 and 10 of how satisfied you think she is currently with her life. There's no right or wrong in this, just a general idea, okay? So we're going to come back to Rachel at the end. So this is what we're going to be talking about today. I have broken down this talk today into 3 basic areas, and I've called them the understanding, the application, and the vision. So the understanding is basically what we're going to be looking at is our identity, how we look at the concept of our future so that we can create a compelling vision for our future. So do you ever hear when people just say about themselves, sure, that's just the way I am? So whenever I hear a client of mine saying that, I say, you've forgotten a word there. You've forgotten the word now. That's just the way I am now. Okay, so we are much more than our personalities. Okay, we are obviously moving identities, and we're going to look at our identity and how once we develop our self-awareness and we get clarity on our self-awareness, we can see how it's possible then to shape our future and to improve the vision of our future. Next, we're going to look at the application. So how do we put all this together? So I invented my own system, which I called DIME. We're just having a drink there. So we're going to look at the DIME system, which is the system that I created for creating a compelling vision for your future. And finally, we're going to be looking at the vision. And the vision is really bringing it all together. So bringing together your mindset. How are you going to get in the right mindset to create a compelling vision for your future? And I appreciate that you may be looking at this in terms of your clients. So how might you be doing this for your clients? Okay, so those are basically 3 of the areas, and we've a lot to cover today. So forgive me if I rattle on at a fierce pace. So we're going to start with the understanding. So there is a coach called Dan Sullivan. He is the founder of a company called Strategic Coach, and he has a TED talk called The Psychology of Your Future Self. He talks about how people mistakenly think that who they are today is who they're always going to be. So if you ask them, have they changed in the last 10 years? They go, well, yes, of course I have. But if you ask them about the next 10 years, they find this much, much harder to imagine. So Sullivan puts this very simply in his talk by saying that human beings are works in progress that mistakenly think that they are finished. So what I would like you to reflect upon today are the following things. When was the last time that you thought about a future vision for yourself? When did you think about what is my future? Where am I going to be in 6 months? What is my life going to look like in a year's time? And I have found quite a nice way to do this. If you think about your next birthday, okay, birthdays are all something we can identify with. Usually we try and make a plan for our birthday, okay? So we go out for dinner. Dear knows what you'll be doing on your next birthday, whether you're unfortunately unable to go out or not. But let's just say, hypothetically, you're planning a nice meal for your birthday, okay, whenever that's coming up. Who do you see as that future self when you attend your birthday? What is your life going to be like at your next birthday? What do you want to have achieved by your next birthday? Okay, so that's just a very simple measurement for how you look at your future. Okay, we're all creating ourselves in the present moment, but all of these present moments are adding up to our future. So in order to create the best future for ourselves, we have to look at the growth mindset as opposed to the fixed mindset. It's extremely important. So the next thing that we need to look at is identity. And what I would like you to do now, very quickly, I'd like you, without thinking about it, I'm literally going to give you 30 seconds to do this. If you've got a pen and paper, I'd like you to write down 3 traits or habits that you have that you believe you cannot change, or that you're struggling to change, or that have always just been your Achilles heel, your thorn in your side. 3 things that you just think, oh, I wish I could just get over that. Okay, just jot them down really quickly. Okay, now I want you to ask yourself, why is it that you believe that you can't change those things? Or what is it that has you stuck on those things? And this is something that you can use with your clients if they're stuck on getting past a particular thing. So is it because you just don't want to? You haven't got the will? Okay. Or is it because you just believed, oh, well, sure, look, that's just the way I am. You know, sure, I've always done things that way, and sure, I'm not going to change at this stage in life. Okay, because that is part of your identity narrative. And your identity narrative is something that Benjamin Hardy talks about. Benjamin Hardy is a psychologist who talks a lot about future identity. And he talks about your identity narrative being the story that you tell yourself, okay, your past, present, and future. So if your identity is rooted in your past and present alone, the fixed mindset can feel very permanent. But if you can focus on envisioning your future, it becomes possible to change your identity narrative. So once you understand that you have the power to change your narrative, you have the power to create whatever future you desire for yourself, then we are ready to get down to the nitty-gritty of moving on to the application of creating our compelling vision for the future. Now, before we get on to doing that vision, I'm going to be giving you a little exercise to do, and Julie is going to be very kindly putting you into breakout rooms in a moment. So the reason that I'm giving you this exercise now is that this is going to tie in to something that we are going to be doing when we look at putting together the compelling vision for our future, okay? So this is what I'd like you to do. Julie's going to kindly put you into breakout rooms in a moment. And in your breakout rooms, I'd like you to discuss and write down 5 habits of successful people. Okay, so 5 things that successful people do on a daily or a very consistent basis. Okay, so what are their habits? What are the things that they do? And what we'll do when we come back is, I don't think there's going to be that many groups. So if there's a spokesperson for each group, we'll just have a chat about what 5 things that you came up with. So Julie, if you're happy enough there to work away and stick people into groups, that would be great. So I'll see you in 5 or 6 minutes. Great, so welcome back, everybody. So I hope you had a good chat there about habits. So habits, we're looking at 5 habits that successful people employ consistently or maybe on a daily basis. Okay, so the reason for having done this exercise will become clear in a moment. So I'm just going to actually open it up to the various different groups. So I think we had about 4 groups. So anybody, if you just want to speak out on behalf of your group or share the 5 traits, just raise your hand and I'll come to you.
Okay, I'll go.
Okay,
I'll go
is it Lucia?
That's right, yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
Justine.
so what did you...
Okay, we had a fair bit of discussion, and I suppose we kind of narrowed, where we broadened it out, we narrowed it down to a number of areas where we saw kind of commonality, if you like. We did start off with that kind of morning ritual, that there's, you know, it's nearly that jumping out of bed, the positive mindset, you know, the cold shower to energize, but there is a set routine in the morning that is positive.
Great.
Okay, so we'd have had that as number 1. We just said there's great self-awareness, and you take that back down to being totally organized and being very time conscious, so they have their day planned out ahead of them.
Fantastic.
Okay, now whether that's a habit or whether it's a trait,
okay.
When we come to that, kind of follows through then in terms of absolute focus, and it was described nearly as a dogged determination. So whatever the tasks are, this is the mindset that's approached with it. Okay. Normally there's good balance. So there's, you know, even down to that kind of personal well-being that's factored in to the day. So in essence, people who are highly successful will normally have an exercise or a meditation regime, or they have something built in for self-care.
Okay.
And I suppose that we had a number of others there as well, and I'll take it down maybe to the last point to summarize. A trait would be that when you are engaging with somebody like this, they have the ability to be present.
Right, presence. Okay,
yeah.
Fantastic. Love it, Lucia. Thank you very much indeed. Great ones there. Really, really interesting. And so there is probably going to be some, well, there may not be, but I'm imagining there may be some overlap here, but let's see if there is. But I really love those 5. Those are 5. Now just imagine for a second that you had even 2 of those or 3 of those in your toolkit? How different would that make your life, you know? So this is what I want you to start thinking about. Okay, next group. Anybody else want to share what? Yes, Kieran?
Yeah, we're happy to share our group. I was elected unanimously to speak.
Super.
So we got an awful lot of similarity to Lucia's listing, obviously, you know, but I think we probably added in consistency, self-belief and resilience. And we kind of wrote down some of the traits that Lucia mentioned, this idea of, you know, the exercise and discipline and focus. The successful people seem to be very, very good at, you know, really keeping the end goal in mind all the time. So the rest of us get distracted about all sorts. They're constantly focused on this end goal.
Right.
Really under a banner of having good habits generally, which I think Lucia really identified quite nicely. But the resilience piece is about, you know, possibly that which you mentioned, just in the growth mindset. Every time you get knocked down, you just pick yourself on up and keep on going.
Okay, excellent. Growth mindset, love it. Okay, that's it. Fantastic. Really, again.
I think we've covered.
Sorry, Kieran?
If anybody else in our group wants to add more, I think we've just...
Everyone happy? Okay, well, thanks a million, Kieran. So again, little bit of, well, not much overlap there, but again, some excellent traits there. So the ability to be resilient and consistency. Now there's an interesting one, consistency. You know, doing things, having that routine and doing things, you know, that are going to lead to that focus, lead to that end goal. Okay, so we're getting the picture here. So let's have another group there. So I think there were 4 groups in total. So next group, yes. Hi, how are you doing? I'm not sure how to pronounce your name.
It's Duncan. It's just an abbreviation of the email address.
Duncan. That's a relief. It's like, I
That's
really
okay.
don't know where to go with that.
No, thank you for your patience and forbearance. We had a lot of similarities and overlap. Exercise and mindfulness, decisiveness, know where they're going. We might add to it in frequently asking for help.
Ah, interesting. Excellent. Excellent.
We had knowing where your boundaries are and at the same time being flexible and being able to adjust and react.
Okay.
And we also noted that they would have, a successful person would have a clear goal. Okay. And would regularly assess their progress against that.
Fantastic.
With much commonality. They stole our ideas.
Fantastic. I love that. There's a couple of really interesting ones there. So I really like the frequently asking for help. We're going to be talking about that in a minute, in a bit later on, and the clear goal. So again, some really clear ones that I'm going to be coming back to in a wee moment. So I think we've one more group to go. Is there anybody else wants to share from the final group, or have we covered everybody? Have we covered everyone? Okay.
Yeah, I don't mind sharing from the last group. We basically have everything that the other groups had, but we also had, I suppose they constantly review and seek out feedback.
Okay.
And also take time to develop themselves. So something about putting time in their day to learn or grow or...
Love it.
And meditation.
Meditation, learning. Okay, I am loving these lists. Okay, now, thank you so much, Barbara, and thanks to everybody who contributed and to all of you for now. Let's just hear a few of these fabulous things. Okay, morning ritual, being organized, having dogged determination, balance, consistency, self-belief, resilience, focusing on the end goal, having a growth mindset, practicing mindfulness, somebody who knows where they're going, somebody who's good at asking for help when they need it, somebody who sets boundaries, somebody who's flexible, somebody who has really clear goals, somebody who seeks out feedback when they need it, people who learn consistently, and meditation. Now, what I want you to do with all of that is think about those habits or those traits and start to think about, if you were putting together a compelling vision for your future, which ones of those appeal to you, or which ones of those with a particular client might you just be thinking, now maybe I could, we could work with that client on looking at that. Okay. So I want you to start thinking about that in terms of your own compelling vision for your future. Okay, so there are some fantastic habits there, and this is the thing about creating a compelling vision of your future. You've got to have good habits. Okay, we've got to have the right mindset, and this is what we're going to be focusing on now, and I'm going to be speeding this along. One of the things that is really interesting, and you can see I'm a big fan of Dan Sullivan because here he comes again, and this is an expression that he has, which is measure the gain, not the gap. Now, what does Dan Sullivan mean by that? What he means is when we are putting together a vision of our future, it's very easy to look at what we have not yet achieved as opposed to what we have achieved. Okay, it's really important that you measure your progress. Instead of saying, oh, but I haven't done that yet, or I haven't got there yet, you know, you're, okay, really simple example. You want to knock, I don't know, you want to knock 10 seconds off your running time, okay? And you've knocked 5 seconds off, but you haven't knocked the second 5 seconds off. But instead of focusing on the 5 seconds progress that you've made, which is huge progress, you're focusing on the 5 seconds that you haven't yet got to, okay? Focus on the 5 seconds progress that you've made, okay? So always look at the gain and not the gap, because that will motivate you. And this is something you can do with your clients. Look at the gain, look at measuring the progress, and do that all of the time. Okay, we're going to have to move swiftly on because I have a lot to get through. So now we are going to look at the application. So this is getting down to the nitty-gritty of how we put together this compelling vision of our future. And this is just a little mnemonic that I came up with myself. And this is really just to help me to remember how, when I'm maybe using this, if I'm going to use this with clients, how we can put together a compelling vision of our future. So I called it DIME. Okay, and it's basically design it, implement, imagine it, measure it, and enjoy it. So we start with the designing it. Get a pen and paper, give yourself an hour on a Sunday afternoon and sit down and write in longhand. That means with pen and paper, a 5-page compelling vision of your future. What does your future look like? What are you doing in your future? Which of those lovely habits that we've just all been through do you want to start practicing or adopting? Okay, which things would you like to maybe knock on the head, okay, or stop? So when you can do this, make it really detailed, put in your senses. How are you feeling? So you're coming out of that meeting having just got the promotion and you are like, yes, I've done it. Okay, what does it feel like? Okay, so make it detailed. In terms of time, I leave that up to you. You can do 6 months, a year, 3 months. It's up to yourself. The important thing when you've designed your vision is the next thing, obviously, is you've got to implement it. Now, to implement it, you need to set yourself one big goal. Okay, so Benjamin Hardy calls them keystone goals. Another trainer I know calls them FIGs, fiercely important goals. Okay, it doesn't matter whatever type of goal you like, a big, hairy, audacious goal, whatever type of a goal, just get your one goal and focus on that, okay? Then you've got to imagine it. So every day, the most successful people spend some time visualizing their goals, okay? So sports people do this all the time. They see themselves sinking the putt. They see themselves sticking the ball through the hoop, whatever it happens to be. Okay, so you've got to spend some time imagining it every day. You can do it while you're meditating, at the end of meditating. If you don't meditate, just do it whenever you have a quiet moment. But imagine it. The third step is to measure it. In my diary, I now put every 90 days, I schedule a review, and it's my me time. I love it. I love my little me time. But if you don't schedule it, it never happens. And guess what? You'll wake up in 2 years and go, oh, there's that old vision I wrote a couple of years ago. Whatever happened to that? Oh my goodness, I forgot to, work on that goal. Completely and utterly pointless. Okay, you've got to measure it. So I use 90 days just because I kind of like a 90-day, that sort of works for me. But people like to measure every day. Some people do it weekly, some people do it monthly, whatever. Again, it's not a case of don't measure yourself by what is it they say? Don't measure your progress using someone else's ruler. Use your own, whatever works for you yourself. And the final thing that I came up with was enjoy it. Okay, this is not a stick to beat yourself with, by the way. This is not getting up at 5 a.m. and having cold showers. I am certainly not advocating that. I am saying this is something that you want to do that gets you G'd up, gets you motivated, gets you excited about your life, because this is your life and you might as well make the best of it. So create that vision and celebrate the wins, celebrate the progress, measure the gain, not the gap. Okay. The next tip that I would say is to be accountable. So find an accountability partner if you can. It can be a coach or a mentor or somebody who shares your vision. But this is really helpful, because if you need somebody to, if you know somebody is waiting to see have you achieved those goals, or just to keep you on track. Okay, but this is an important one. Make sure you pick the right person. Okay, so I'm not necessarily talking, you can have a coach who keeps you accountable, and that's great if you have a coach. But if you want this to be a separate thing, which is, you know, just about your future vision, you can find an accountability partner. If or you can, you know, you can work that through with your coach, whichever you prefer. Okay. So the next thing that we are going to look at is the vision. Now, this is all about our mindset. So this is all about how do we actually bring this to pass. So we all have goals. I don't know what your goals are, but we all have things we want to achieve. Okay, so how do we get into the right mindset to achieve them? Now, I love this picture of Tiger Woods. This is Tiger Woods winning the Masters last year. And even if you're not a golfing fan, and no matter what you might think about Tiger Woods personally, this for me was one of the greatest comebacks in all of sporting history. And I thought, do you know how many times I listened to Off the Ball and they had written Tiger Woods off completely? Oh, he'll never be back. And I'm not talking about the people who run off. I'm talking about different people they had on, different sports journalists. Oh, he's gone. We're never going to see him again. What do you think Tiger Woods' vision of his future was? Okay, completely different to what everybody else's vision of his future was. Okay, they had him gone. But do you think he had that vision? No way. He saw himself on that golf course and he saw himself winning. Okay, he knows how to get into focus. Now, of course, I'm not suggesting for 1 minute we can't sadly all be like Tiger Woods, but the point I'm making is that just ignore the naysayers. Keep to your vision. Okay, don't be distracted by people. And if people try to discourage you, some people are afraid of other people changing. Okay, don't be distracted by that. You keep your vision and you keep going, because it just is proof that anything is possible. And that, you know, that is for me a really great story that keeps me G'd up when I think things are tough. Okay, so what we've got to do then is get into the right mindset and visualize that future self. Okay, so the next slide I'm going to be talking about is, I have been very fortunate lately to, back in March, courtesy of my brother, actually, thank you to him, I was introduced to a psychologist by the name of Willie Horton. And Willie Horton has worked with some corporates in Ireland. He now lives in the French Alps, but he has studied the science of getting yourself into flow and getting yourself into the present. And he talks about, and I have asked him if I could use his lovely phrase today, and he said, go ahead, knock yourself out. He talks about normal, crazy people. Okay, and normal crazy people in Willie's sphere are people who are just mindless as opposed to mindful. Okay, so they wake up in the morning and the first thing they do is scroll through social media. Now, if you wake up first thing in the morning and you pick up your phone, you start scrolling through social media, how do you think that's setting the tone for your day? Okay, your negativity. Okay, it's garbage in, garbage out. And this is the problem with, you know, the client Rachel that I was talking about. Okay, completely distracted from the get-go. Okay, normal crazy people, Willie always talks about the same 70-odd thousand thoughts that we have in our heads that just go round and round and round like a hamster wheel. We have to learn how to break out of that. Okay, we have to learn how to turn up to the present moment. Okay, and normal crazy people just keep their stuck. Okay, effectively they're stuck. So the point about creating your future vision, you are getting yourself or your clients out of this stuck place. And you know, you've got to elevate your mind in order to do that. Now, Willie advocates meditation. It's not for everybody. Okay, but what we are going to talk about is flow, because this is how you get yourself into focus. This is how you get yourself out of those 70,000 thoughts, and how you turn up to the here and now, and how you do things, okay, in flow. So again, what I'd like you to do is just write into the chat box what it is you do to get yourself into a state of flow. If there's anybody out there who practices being in flow, what is it that you do? So for some people it's running. They find they get themselves into that higher state of flow. Whoops, sorry, when they're running. Oh dear. Sorry, I've gone the wrong way now. They get themselves into flow when they are running. For some people, it's climbing a mountain. For some people, including me, it's meditation. But what is it that you do to get yourself into a state of flow? And Julie, if you could just let me know from the chat box, because sorry, I'm having some trouble here clicking on things. So if you could just throw me out a few suggestions there of what people do to get into flow. I'm having some trouble locating my chat here.
No worries. So Caleb was saying that he meditates daily.
Okay, great. Yeah, and it works for me, and it's working for him. Brilliant.
A few others are coming in. So breathing exercises, hiking, Pilates, listen to music before starting work. Just started doing meditation and yoga.
Wonderful.
Amanda's saying journaling. Elaine is saying getting out in nature.
Journaling, wonderful. Journaling, getting out in nature. See, all of these things are all fantastic ways of getting into flow, okay? Because we become completely absorbed in an activity and we lose all our sense of self-consciousness. We lose all our sense of what's going on. You know, it doesn't matter. We forget about the past. We forget about, we're in the present moment. Now, if you can bring that to your work, you are going to be so much more effective. And when you are creating a compelling vision for your future, that's the state of mind that you want to be in when you're trying to achieve your goal. We need to get out of the 70,000 thoughts and into the present moment where we can focus and we can do what we need to do now. Okay, so that is why being in flow is such an important part of creating a compelling vision for your future. So thanks a million for those brilliant suggestions. Okay, so this is just a recap now. We're on the final bend here. So this is the vision. So we're just bringing it all together. This is really everything I've discussed today summarized. You set aside your few hours or an hour or so to create your compelling vision for your future. Okay, then you identify your one keystone goal or fiercely important goal and schedule time to work on it each week, or I don't know, depending upon what the goal is, however often you need to work on it. Everybody obviously will have a different vision for their future. Review, I would say every 90 days at a minimum, again, entirely up to yourself what way you do that. And then you visualize your future vision every day. So what is your vision of the future? So when you see yourself in a year, what are you going to be doing? You know, what job are you going to be doing? If you're doing the same job, how will you have developed? How will you have progressed? Somebody said in the habits, one of the groups we're talking about learning. One of the things that successful people do every day is learning. They learn and they develop themselves. And that is a really brilliant. If that is the only thing that you take from today and you start to develop that as a habit, you're going to be so far ahead this time next year. And obviously, this is a difficult time. Let's not beat about the bush to be doing a compelling vision of your future. I totally appreciate that we are all in a very difficult space right now. And it's very difficult to visualize the future because dear knows where we're going to be. Okay. I totally appreciate that that is tough, but you can still put your own personal goals and your own personal vision. Okay. Let's not let the coronavirus stop that. Let's still go ahead and do that because we will get back. Or things are going to change eventually. Things are going to improve. And there's still things that you can do within where you are now. We're all still progressing. We're all still moving. In fact, some people I know are developing at a complete rate of knots at the moment. They're going very, very fast and doing lots and lots of different things and learning like crazy. So that is basically it in a nutshell. So before we finish, I just want to come back to Rachel. So do you remember Rachel I told you about earlier? So Rachel was my client and she was struggling with, you know, she was distracted, and she was, you know, she couldn't think about the future, and she was, you know, she was struggling in many areas of her life. So I asked you just to jot down a number of her satisfaction, okay, life satisfaction. So I want to talk to you about Rachel now, okay? So this is Rachel after 90 days, okay? So Rachel has decided to turn off all distractions during her workday. So she's turned off her social media. She's now focusing fully on her job, and she's enjoying her job a lot more. And because of that, her boss is giving her more of the graphic design work that she loves, because you can see that she is really making an effort and she's really putting her all into it. She's fully focused at work, and because of that, she's getting a huge amount out of her work. And then she is, she's also written down, she's done a 5-page vision of her future, okay? So she's sat down and she's written down how she visualizes her future, okay? And what she wants to work on, okay? So I asked you to put a number down, general number for her level of satisfaction at the beginning. What do you think her level of satisfaction is now? Okay, 3 months later, given that she's done all of those things. Okay, so she's tried to get herself into flow, she's focused herself, she's turned off her distractions, and she now has a clear picture of where she wants to go in the future. Okay, so again, does anybody want to just share a thought there of where they think she might be, where Rachel might be at the moment?
So Mary in the chat is saying 8.
Okay, Mary thinks 8. Well, I have to tell you, Mary, you are spot on. Rachel actually went from, on average, so she did the Wheel of Life, and she actually went from a 4 on average to an 8. So she has doubled her level of satisfaction with life. Now, as a result for a client, that is a big tick for me. That is like happy days, okay? On the right path, but just happier, more motivated, enjoying life a lot more, okay? So that is basically what creating a compelling vision of your future can do for you. So I really hope that you've taken at least one nugget away from today, something that you can think about. And if nothing else, if I have left you with some food for thought, then my job here is done. So thanks very much indeed for your time today. I have had a ball. I love talking about this stuff. And so if you're interested, please get in touch. I'd love to connect with you. You can find me at proactivecoaching.ie. And yeah, thanks very much indeed to Julie and Kinch Lyons for having me today. And I know, Julie, you have a few things you want to finish up with, so I will hand back over to you.